Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into something really transformative, I think. Mark L. Lockwood's loving inquiry. And this isn't just, an abstract concept. It's presented as a very practical approach, designed for, well, deep healing and changing your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've gathered quite a bit of Lockwood's material, his core text, Loving Inquiry, the worksheet that goes with it, another piece called The Practice of Loving Inquiry, and even a transcript from one of his YouTube talks on healing and life transformation.
Yeah, quite a collection.
So our goal really is to unpack how this whole practice helps us face fear, properly face it, and get back to authenticity, back to love.
And it's quite a journey we're mapping out here. I think you'll find some pretty surprising insights into how fear actually works and, importantly, the power you have through self-inquiry.
A shortcut, maybe?
You could say that. A shortcut to navigating those really tricky emotions, those tough situations. What I find particularly interesting is this blend Lockwood creates. It's like ancient wisdom. He even references Sun Tzu mixed right in with very current psychological understanding.
That is an interesting mix.
Yeah, it makes for a potent approach.
Okay, so let's get right down to it. Where does Lockwood say fear actually comes from? What's the root?
Well, his central claim is pretty stark. He says all anxiety is separation anxiety.
Separation anxiety. Okay.
Yeah. And fear, he defines it as the idea that you are separate from love. That's the core.
So it's a thought, an idea, fundamentally.
Exactly. And building on that, he explains how this idea, this fear, it actually creates these emotional states that do not exist in reality, which is what causes the pain, the suffering.
Doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But feels very real, I imagine.
Oh, completely. That's why he uses the acronym FEAR, false evidence appearing real.
Ah, okay. I've heard that before.
Right. He describes it as like being in a dream state, not actual reality. A state created by what he calls a frightened personality that's desperately trying to feel safe, but it's a false safety. There's a quote included from Jed McKenna that really hits this hard.
Oh, yeah.
McKenna says, all attachments to the dream state are made of energy. That energy is called emotion. Fear cannot be confronted or slain because it is fear of nothing, of no self. Fear can only be surrendered to. The thing feared entered.
Wow. Fear of nothing. That's counterintuitive.
It is. He goes on, you can spend your life hacking away at the million-headed hydra of attachment, or you can follow emotional energy back to its source and see Leviathan for what it really is, your heart.
So the monster isn't out there. It's within our own attachments, within the heart itself.
That's the idea. These deep-seated fears, they feel monstrous like Leviathan, but they're ultimately part of us, illusory but powerful patterns.
Okay, that Jed McKenna quote really paints a picture. So if fear can't be directly fought, like McKenna says, what's Lockwood's approach? How do we heal? How do we find that treasure Coelho talks about?
Well, it connects right back. The healing journey, according to Lockwood, is about moving from separation to integration.
Integration, okay.
It means facing those fears, not to fight them, but to allow them to dissolve. You have to acknowledge that fear feels incredibly real. It is real in its effects. But, and this is key, it's not necessarily true.
Real but not true. That's a crucial distinction.
It is. And that's exactly where loving inquiry comes in. It's the tool that helps you question what we think, feel, and believe. The goal, to allow the truth to set us free. It's about sorting out what's real in your experience from what is fundamentally true.
That really shifts the focus, doesn't it? The sources talk about needing courage, using the word heart in brackets, to surrender and accept. And they mention staying emotionally open and heart-brain coherent. What does that coherence part mean exactly?
Good question. Heart-brain coherence is essentially about getting your heart's intuitive feeling sense and your brain's logical thinking to align, to work together, not fight each other.
Okay. Like getting them on the same page.
Precisely. When you achieve that state, the idea is you can actually, metaphorically, slay the dragon, slay the fear, but you do it with the emotion of love. And a key part of this is examining our own belief systems for what Lockwood calls thinking errors.
Thinking errors, like cognitive distortions.
Very similar, yes, but maybe even deeper. These aren't just occasional lapses in logic. They're often ingrained, automatic ways of thinking that actively create our suffering. The sources list some really relatable examples.
Like what?
Things like firmly believing he's a bad father, or I dislike all immigrants, women are bad drivers, or even grief-related thoughts like she died way too young, or judgments like he will never amount to anything, or she never lets me get a word in.
Wow, those are common thoughts. things people say or think all the time.
Exactly. And loving inquiry challenges you to see them not as facts, but as potential thinking errors rooted in fear or separation. The insight here is that love isn't just a balm after the fact, it's the actual tool, the perspective you use to see through and dissolve these errors. It reveals our underlying wholeness.
Which brings us back to Paulo Coelho. Wherever your heart is, that is where you'll find your treasure. The treasure is found through this loving examination.
Beautifully put, yes.
Okay, building on these thinking errors, the sources drop a pretty sobering idea that
Yeah.
we're often led to believe a lie, not just by others, but by ourselves. It mentions scientific findings. Up to 50% of our memories are false and untrue, and studies where about half the participants came to believe, at least partly, in completely made-up childhood events. That's kind of disturbing.
Yeah.
How does Lockwood suggest we deal with our own potentially unreliable minds?
Well, it's a crucial point. This individual tendency towards believing things that aren't true, it doesn't just stay personal. It scales up. It becomes societal.
Chess up.
The sources provide some really stark historical examples. Think about the Nazis' fear of Jews. It was based on a fabricated belief system, a lie about inferiority and evil that led to unimaginable horror. Or consider the deep-seated hatred taught between some Palestinians and Israelis. Yet the sources mention experiments where just putting teenagers from both sides together allowed that fear to dissolve almost instantly, replaced by connection.
Shows how quickly things could change.
It does. And then there's South African apartheid, built entirely on racist lies, beliefs about separation and superiority that now seem utterly absurd but caused immense suffering.
So these historical examples show the devastating power of these lies of separation.
Exactly. And it begs the question, doesn't it? If these huge conflicts were fueled by such lies, what similar, maybe more subtle lies are we still buying into today, individually and collectively?
And it's definitely not just history. The sources explicitly say fake news is built on fear. And that fear fuels lies leading to ongoing biases, gender bias, classism, racism.
Absolutely. Lockwood states, the world wars were Cain and Abel all over again, driven by these lies of separation. And the solution proposed is radical but simple. Stopping the fear is how you win world wars and end racism and cure anxiety.
Wow. That's a bold claim.
It is, but the underlying principle is consistent. It's always a return to authenticity, connection, and love. Think about the emotions listed as being born from separation.
Yeah, let's list those. What does Lockwood include?
Things like anger, jealousy, loneliness, confusion, feelings of superiority or inferiority, obsession with status symbols like money or fame, addiction, blaming others, constant criticism, resentment, competitiveness, depression, even feeling self-righteous, all seen as symptoms of that core separation.
That's a wide range. It covers a lot of common human struggle.
It really does, which naturally brings us to the positive side, the profound shift that happens with a return to love.
Right. What happens then?
Lockwood says quite powerfully, when we remember who we are, the insanity stops. It's about finding inner peace, melting away those harsh judgments we have, not just of others, but often of ourselves too.
And how do we remember who we are?
The key insight is this. Remembering who I am requires me to ask who I am without the stories in mind that I am believing, getting underneath the narratives.
Okay, so loving inquiry acts like a brake. It helps us stop dead in our tracks before thoughts become things, before we spiral.
Precisely. It encourages using what Lockwood terms contemplative intelligence, or CQ, to question our thinking before it takes hold.
Contemplative intelligence, CQ, what exactly is that? Is it different from IQ or EQ?
Yes, the idea is that CQ goes beyond your IQ, beyond just raw intellect. It's the capacity to penetrate illusion and touch reality.
Penetrate illusion?
Yeah. Lockwood suggests it might even be the highest form of intelligence. Think of it as the wisdom to see past the surface drama, the emotional charge of a moment, and perceive the deeper truth, like seeing behind the curtain in a play.
I like that analogy.
And a core practice for developing CQ is the contemplative pause, maybe just a 3-second rule before you react or speak, creating that vital space between stimulus and response.
That little pause can make all the difference, can't it?
Huge difference. It reminds me a bit of Tara Brach's work, distinguishing what feels real but not true. You investigate those strong beliefs with, as she says, mindful and courageous presence.
Ah, okay. So CQ facilitates that mindful investigation.
Exactly. And when we operate from that space, the sources suggest we naturally start experiencing the emotions of healing leading to love.
And what are those? Let's contrast them with the separation emotions.
Things like gratitude, genuine caring, reverence, trust, deep appreciation, patience, contentment, a sense of awe, generosity, integrity, allowing vulnerability, courage, openness, kindness, a very different landscape of feeling.
Definitely feels different. Okay, this all sounds incredibly insightful, but how do we actually practice loving inquiry? You mentioned a worksheet.
Yes, the practical application is key, and the sources emphasize writing it down. Why? Because it helps your true sacred self, as Lockwood puts it, respond without the usual interference from the personality.
Interesting. Writing bypasses the usual mental loops.
That's the idea. It shifts you from being dictated to by the environment or by your own reactive patterns towards being truly free. It's laid out as a 6-step process.
Okay, let's walk through them. Step 1.
Self-awareness. Simple but crucial. Just noticing when you're stressed, anxious, afraid, in pain. Recognizing, okay, something's up. There is work to do here.
Acknowledging the signal. Got it. Step 2.
Self-discipline. This is where the contemplative pause comes in. You stop, you ask yourself, is what I am believing true? And then you write. Write down the stressful thoughts, the feelings they cause, the actions you want to take because of them, and try to identify the underlying core belief.
Writing it all out. Okay. Step 3.
Self-inquiry. This involves projecting consequences. You ask, kind of playing it out, what will happen if I start to think that? If I start to feel that, then I will do this. And the real consequence for me will be seeing the chain reaction.
Tracing the potential impact. Makes sense. Step 4.
Self-connection. This is about actively remembering your true self, the self beyond the stressful story. You do this by listing 5 core values, things like honesty, compassion, courage, and 5 deeper positive emotions you connect with, like peace or joy.
Grounding yourself in your values. Nice. Step 5.
Self-reflection. This is about owning your judgments, writing down specifically, how should I have done, will do the thing that's bothering you, because I judge them harshly. And, crucially, acknowledging how you might also judge yourself harshly in similar ways.
Ooh, that takes honesty. Looking at your own part in it.
Absolutely. And finally, step 6, self-love. This involves articulating who you are based on your best values from step 4. Making a conscious choice for compassion towards others, even those you were judging. Consciously choosing new feelings aligned with your values, and realizing the freedom you feel without this story in my body, heart, mind.
Wow. That's a thorough process. From awareness right through to embodying a new way of being.
It really is. It's designed to be transformative.
And another practical tip mentioned is simply stopping first, taking that breath, that pause, and consciously deciding don't take anything or anyone in your environment personally.
Yes. That's huge. It breaks the chain reaction of negativity. The idea is when they stay free of my judgment or reaction, I stay free.
That's powerful. When they stay free, I stay free.
And linked to that is the idea that expectations are always on their way to becoming resentments.
Say more about that.
Well, if you expect others to behave a certain way to make you feel okay, you're setting yourself up for disappointment and resentment when they inevitably don't meet those expectations. It's about not judging them, not having those rigid expectations so you don't end up believing lies through projection.
Projecting your needs or judgments onto them.
Exactly. It comes back to letting go of that need to control others or the environment and returning again and again to self-love and managing your own state.
Which leads perfectly into this other framework the sources provide. This idea of clarifying what's actually ours to manage. They call it whose business is it?
Yes. This is brilliantly simple, but so effective. It divides things into 3 categories.
Okay.
First, there's Gutty's business. This basically means the environment, circumstances beyond your control, the weather, global events, what has already happened. The sources are very clear. This is not your business. You can't control it.
Okay, so worrying about the rain is pointless.
Pretty much. Second, there's self's business. This is your domain. Your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, your reactions. This absolutely is your business. This is where your power lies.
Right. My thoughts, my feelings, my behaviors.
Correct. And third, there's other people's business. This means their thoughts, their feelings, their choices, their behaviors. Also, emphatically, not your business.
Even if it affects me. Like your example, if a colleague is always late.
Even then, their lateness. That's their business. Your reaction to their lateness, your frustration, your anger, that's your business. See the shift.
I do. It immediately brings the focus back from trying to change them to managing myself.
Precisely. It stops you from meddling mentally in things you can't control and directs your energy where it can actually make a difference within yourself.
So, applying this, loving inquiry is my business. It's the tool for managing my thoughts and feelings.
Exactly. By focusing purely on your own business, your inner world, you find freedom from the stress of trying to manage everyone and everything else.
That feels liberating.
It's meant to be. And to help solidify these new perspectives, loving inquiry incorporates affirmations, powerful statements to reinforce self-love, connection, and these new beliefs.
Can you share some of those?
Sure, they include things like, I belong, I have unshakable goodness, I am cherished, I free myself with the work, I am a work in progress, I love myself more each day, I love the world more each day. And importantly, what other people do no longer imprisons me. What happens in the environment no longer imprisons me. And ending with, I am powerful, full of the power of love.
Those feel really grounding and empowering.
They're designed to be anchors in this new way of experiencing yourself and the world.
What an incredible arc we've covered. From understanding fear as this deep sense of separation, seeing how our minds can create these thinking errors and even false memories, all the way to this practical step-by-step method of loving inquiry. Using contemplative intelligence, figuring out whose business it is, and using affirmations.
It really ties together, doesn't it?
It does, and the implication is huge that this isn't just about personal well-being, feeling less anxious or depressed, but it scales up. It's suggested as a path towards resolving conflict on a much larger scale. All through this return to authenticity, connection, and love.
A profound possibility.
It really reminds you, the listener, that this power to shift your entire experience from fear to love, it's right there within you.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. If fear really is false evidence appearing real, as Lockwood puts it, what real but ultimately untrue stories might you still be holding on to right now? What freedoms might be waiting for you just on the other side of daring to question those stories? Maybe just consider applying one small aspect of loving inquiry, perhaps that contemplative pause, or asking, is this true? To one challenge you're facing this week. See what happens.